So today we're going to have a little discussion about thinking. What role does thinking play in our lives? Behind every creation, behind every invention, anything that humanity has done has been fostered by thinking. So I just wanted to kind of have a little discussion about this whole process, about this whole movement of thinking. And being that it's valuable, it's an important skill to master, but for some reason, I don't think we've mastered it as humanity. You look at the movement of humans, we've said we've evolved from being primitive to more civilized, as some would say. But throughout this whole process, we're still facing the same issues. One of the main ones is killing each other. Nation against nation, brother against brother, race, culture. So we've evolved externally from the infrastructures that we have, technology-wise, but psychologically, I don't think we've evolved. And thinking is the underline of this. Behind all the beautiful creation or the inventions, the mind is behind it. In the same light, behind every destruction and killing, murdering, thinking is behind it as well. So this idea of thinking is imperative to understand. When we look at our politicians, spiritual leaders, gurus, law enforcement, and our teachers, they all operate with the underline of thinking. If we were to assess them based on their actions or their thinking process, what score would we give them? So it brings me back to that question of thinking. Now, by no means am I an expert when it comes to thinking, but I have the same faculties, the mind, perception, consciousness, as everybody else. So I think I can do an analysis more from a organic way, just paying attention to the instrument itself and being aware of the movement of my mind. So we do have specialists that have, talk about consciousness, awareness, if all of that process is in the mind or outside of the mind. There's a lot of theories about this and a lot of literature. And I heard somewhere that when there's a lot of literature about things, it means that we still don't understand it. So I'm going to take the organic approach. But before we do that, I think it's also important to see what the intellectuals are saying about thinking. Thinking is the process of using one's mind to consider, analyze, and evaluate information, ideas, or concepts in order to make decisions, solve problems, or form opinions. It involves the use of cognitive process such as perception, memory, attention, reasoning, and imagination to process and manipulate information. Thinking can be conscious or unconscious and can be influenced by various factors such as emotions, biases, and past experience. So that's the intellectual way of looking at it. There's a lot of verbiage there. So I'm going to kind of take a different, more organic approach to this, from being able to observe my mind. Thinking can be influenced by our emotions, biases, and past experiences. So that's imperative to kind of be mindful of those things. We can kind of investigate into that and see how these things factor into our thinking process. So what is thinking from my perspective and from my way of perceiving it? So to simplify it, thinking is a movement of thought. Without thoughts, there's no thinking. So, and how do thoughts come about? You go through an experience, the mind records it and plays it back. So from my understanding, and I'm not saying I'm right, this is just an analysis based on my own personal observation. The mind records information and plays it back. Now, I guess awareness kind of gives that information relevance. If you're not aware of the thoughts that you're having, if they're operating and you don't give them attention, they pass on. So without awareness, the mind is just doing what it does, recycle information. So awareness gives thoughts value. Can you be depressed without the memory of the incident? Can you be depressed without thought? Can you be angry without thought? Can you hate without thought? Can you love without thought? So these are very important questions. And how relevant is thought? We can look at thought, same thing as memory, in two different ways. If you see a poisonous snake that has bit somebody and it's poisonous, you can see the reaction. Obviously, that memory is important for your survival. You know for a fact you can't walk up to a lion and pet it. You know, you've seen what it's done to other people. When you place your keys somewhere, you need to retrieve those keys to have directions to get back to your house. When you meet people, you need to memorize their names. So thought in that aspect is crucial for our survival. So I guess the question is, how do we use memory, which is thought, and being that is stored in the brain, and the brain's job is to replay that information, and then awareness has to be able to analyze and see the facts in that information. If you're insecure because somebody said you're not intelligent enough, not pretty enough, and you believe it, now you feel a certain way about yourself. But is that a fact? And also knowing that beauty is very subjective. So somebody else says you're beautiful, but you don't believe that person, but you believe somebody else because you give them more importance, or you want something from them. I guess the next question is, how efficient is the thinking process? We have a lot of problems in society. I mean, that's very obvious, from our higher education, family, hatred, self-hatred, depression, all of those things. And all of those things manifest from the mind. And that's also part of thinking. Our belief system is also thought. Our conditioning, our political parties. So those are all things that we were educated on. From that, we store them in our minds. Are we so destructive as humans because of lack of efficient thinking? Where does intelligence come into play? And why is it that we can't solve one of the pressing issues that we've encountered since God knows when? And God is just another discussion for another time. For thousands of years, we've been killing each other because of our belief systems. So, if thinking is such an important part of our living, and the only way we can solve problems, why is it that we haven't solved these problems? Or do we just don't know how to think? I mean, we're creating more sophisticated weapons to protect ourselves from fellow human beings, but we all crave the same thing as far as security, to be respected, to live a full, fulfilling life. So we all desire the same thing, but why is it that we can't get along? So I guess the question is, what role does thought play into our thinking? Knowing that they have the capacity to transform our lives for the best or the worst. The instrument that creates the problem is also trying to solve the problem. It's like the bank robber trying to catch the person that robs the bank. Thought or thinking is trying to solve the problems. But thinking is also the same instrument or the same entity that have created the problems. So how do we resolve this issue? I had a conversation with my father at one point. When you first get out of college, you acquire a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. And it sometimes can make you arrogant. My father was one of those people that he loved to go back and forth, discussion-wise. And it's important. He cultivated an environment where whenever there was an issue, you go back and forth. And through that whole process, if you're open enough and not have your ego in the way, you can come up across something beautiful, the truth. So, in my naiveness, after accumulating a lot of information, going to college and reading a lot of books, and I'll come back and have debates with him back and forth. And he looked at me at one point and just said, "Son, facts." Just that simple. Son, facts. And it didn't make sense until I started questioning a lot of things and emptying myself. And then you realize that you never debate facts. You don't debate that when the sun is out. It illuminates the environment. You don't debate that. The only time you debate when you have a belief system, and a belief means you don't know. So just from that simple statement, that transformed the way I perceived. I took the same statement and applied it to the knowledge that I've acquired. Everything that you've acquired as far as knowledge-wise, it's other people's concepts, theories. But for it to become a fact for you, you have to go through that experience. And from that experience, now you know. So in knowing, there's no debate. So from that, if we look at our minds, where thinking takes place, which is a movement of thought, which is memory. Our whole education is memory, is thought. Knowledge is memory. And being that knowledge is always evolving and always incomplete. So if you have something that is incomplete and you're making decisions off of those things, will that solve problems or cause more problems? So I guess when thinking is in operation, it's imperative that we deal with facts. If we deal with facts, there's really no need to debate. From facts inspire the right action. When you're hungry, you don't believe you're hungry. You know you're hungry. Your body, you can feel it. Your physiology dictates that. When you have to go to the bathroom, you don't believe you have to go to the bathroom. You know. So if we deal with what we know, we take the right appropriate action. So if we want to evolve psychologically as humans, being that we've evolved externally, of course, that's very obvious from the infrastructures. Technology. But psychologically, have we evolved? We're still killing each other through wars. We're building more sophisticated war weapons. We're still divided, nation against nation. Our politicians are not doing their due diligence to make sure to take care of the people that they're supposed to represent. We're destroying the earth. So have we really evolved? Are we civilized as we say we are? So all of these things encapsulate thinking. So what role does awareness play in this whole process? You know, we can also go into being conscious and unconscious. Conscious, which is content. You're conscious of the content. The movement of memory, which is content. And it's getting to the point that we don't like to think. We're not outsourcing it to the computers to think for us. And is thinking something you learn from school? Or is it just being disciplined enough to observe the movement of your mind and seeing what is inside of you. And if you were to cleanse yourself of all the thoughts, the negative thoughts, the belief system, all the accumulated theories, and just deal with the facts, would that make a difference? Thinking is just one of those things that is very simple, but at the same time, very complex. If you don't understand the movement of it and all the ingredients, and have all the tools to be able to observe without being biased and extracting the facts. So, like we said earlier, behind all of this beautiful invention and all of this chaos that we're creating, on the verge of eradicating ourselves on this planet, there's one instrument behind it that's thinking. How efficient is your thinking? And what have you done to make sure that that machine is operating efficiently? And are you controlling it, or is someone else controlling it? Till next time, think about it.